What drives winning? What allows teams to win championships? But not just one championship, teams that win year after year. Follow me on this journey to talk with coaches all across the country to uncover what separates average teams versus champions. Hey, my name is Ryan Romano, and I'm your host here on the Championship Corner podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Championship Corner. I've got the man, the legend, Mr. Dave Tilley with me from Shift Movement Science, Gymnastics Education. And you know what? We'll just go from there. Is give us a little background about you and kind of like how you got into like what you're doing and a lot of the changes and the philosophy and the education that you're trying to give to, especially within the gymnastics world and the gymnastics community.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. I appreciate it. And I wish I had you everywhere to intro me like that. That felt great. That was really exciting. My mom would be really proud of that one. Yeah, man, it's a ridiculous story. I don't know how I got here. It's been 10 years since I started Shift in 2013. The quick hits version is I did gymnastics. I've been coaching a long time, and I then went to PT school and kind of got into strength conditioning and did boards after that in sports. Yeah. And I was like, I got some interesting things that could probably help people between, learning a lot in the medical world and what I'm seeing in the coaching world, and, some friends that I'm lucky to have who are really smart. And so I was like, maybe I can just spit this out in a blog. And then the blog became, can you come teach a lecture at this place and this, this avenue? And I was like, sure, why not? And yeah, that it just like slowly grew from there. And then the world exploded in 2016 with like the giant scandal. And I feel like I was already maybe barking up the tree of like my spidey senses are tingling that some things should change. And that, some of us working in gymnastics are not the happiest because of the way the culture is. And so it was a combination of a lot of people were struggling with mental health and with issues as their careers. They hated working at certain jobs. And I also felt the burn of that. And I also was like, I just don't want to be in gymnastics if I have to yell at little kids. And so it's already kind of getting there. And then, again, like the world kind of blew up, and I wish it never happened. I wish all of it had never existed, but it shined a light in a very dark corner of gymnastics. And then, my website maybe was just right place, right time, that the content spread a lot more. And then so 16, 17, 18 was me traveling a lot, speaking a lot with college teams, with elite programs, with a lot of strength coaches. I was working at Champion, where I'm at now in Boston. So I had their ear and they were helping me out from the baseball world. And then 18, we started a podcast, and then it was just absolute turbo mode. You know what I mean? Like we're it's just absolutely wild what has happened the last 4 or 5 years in particular. So coming up on 10-year anniversary, and podcast is close to 1 million downloads, and whatever happens is happening. That's it. My life is weird, man. I just wake up and try to talk to people and help people, and whatever happens. So,
yeah. So have you seen since what was it like 2016, 2017, have you started to see that shift in culture? Because ultimately, like, that's such an interesting sport dynamic. And, I think everybody knew in the back of their minds, there had to be like, or there could be another way. There could be a different way of like coaching. Yeah. Like you said, it doesn't have to be like, grind. Yeah. So like, have you started to see some of that shift?
It has. Yeah. And I think the podcast I've been doing lately, or people I've been talking to, like, particularly I'd say like in the last maybe year or two, and really so, is like, I'm more optimistic now than I was 5 years ago. Right. So in 2016, it took like a whole year to flush out all the devastation and what had happened and get through it. And then but 17, 18, I wrote like a really large book and put it out for free of trying to help people. And I remember like putting that out and being like hopeful that it was really going to be good. But then like in 18, man, like 18, 19, I was like, can I swear? I'm going to swear.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
So this is just me. I'm sorry. But I got to like 17, 18 and it was going well. And then I just started to see like so much still resistance. And I was like, yo, fuck this. I was like, I do not want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many good people inside the culture. Like, I think 98% of the coaches out there are amazing, wonderful humans working their face off. They're not posting about it on social media. And I felt like still the 2% of monsters were getting all the attention, and it was just seeping, throughout the community of every article was bad. Every sideline was bad. Everybody's awful. Everyone's crushing little kids. And I was like, yo, this is not what's happening. And so I kind of got a little exhausted in like 2018 after that. And I was like, I guess like it's just a moment of you can choose to hang it up and run away from the hard work, or you can just double down. And so, yeah, I just doubled down in the podcast. And now in 2013 versus then, I'm like, all right, it's finally, we're getting there. There's amazing strength coaches that are helping now, amazing medical providers. So many good coaches are getting the positive limelight they deserve. And a lot of younger coaches are seeing either the old guard kind of like not be as effective and retire a little bit, but then like a new slot of like kind of like 35 to 55-year-old coaches who are like kind of learn from the great technical stuff that was great from those kind of hardcore coaches. They had some great things to offer, but they're also very much like into podcasts and into courses. And they're kind of learning from me and other friends of mine who are doing a lot of great work. So they're like the perfect hybrid, like it's like a Trojan horse. You know what I mean? They have like all of the best, but then they're also like, ooh, okay, science is important. Strength conditioning is important. We can change the culture a little bit. And they're just like, hat tip to them. They are just hustling right now. And I think they're the ones pushing change forward, not me or anybody else. So that generation and that kind of group who is really willing to learn gives me a lot of hope for the last 2 years in particular have been like really, really successful. And also NCAA gymnastics is really helping push the positive narrative forward. So yeah, I'm more optimistic now than I was in 2018.
Yeah. What was kind of was it the same message going into club gyms versus like college gyms? Essentially like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way.
Yes and no. I would say the problems that college teams face, and I'm really fortunate at this point where I consult with the majority of the teams, is I'm really like seeing their problems are tactical problems. They're like, we know it's important. We have great medical staff. We have great strength conditioning, but you can't look on PubMed right now for like, give me a phasic program for a gymnast to get better vertical power, like, or better like sprinting velocity. There's no data on that. So they're more tactical, which is like, we believe in this. We want to do it. We want to help. We're just trying to build the train tracks as the train is driving at us. So that for them, it's more like talking about the actual nuts and bolts of programs and injuries and culture and like helping them. But they're all on board. The girls love it. Most of the girls want to work hard. So it's very different in the college world. And I treat so many college gymnasts at Champion when they come home for the summer that it's very, very easy. The cultural side, the younger club side, 10 to 14 is still very much culture and fear of the unknown of if we change, are we going to miss our shot for a scholarship or miss it because all these other kids are training more hours. So there's a lot of that. And there's a lot more personal psychology at the club level, which is between parents, between gymnasts, between coaches about personal insecurities, about like fear of judgment, fear of, financial stuff. Running a business is very different as a club owner versus a college where you're getting paid automatically to do what you want. So yeah, I would say the club level is much more about culture, psychology, and trying to continue to give them tools to change things and be fearful of not change. But they also have a lot of great positive role models now. So they're looking up to people in college level or club level who are changing, lifting, and they're starting to do more. And they're seeing kids who are happier and they love what they do. So it's getting there. Yeah, much more tactical in the college and elite world, much more philosophical, culture, personal insecurity, probably at the club level.
Yeah. And with the, like, when you're going into universities and stuff, is it just within like strength and conditioning staff, or is it across the board, head coaches, assistants, as well as like S&C and things like that?
So this is the benefit of being a massive fucking dork, is that they actually want me to talk a little bit. Right? I have a intersection point, I guess, like an interest that I have academic ADD. So like I know a lot maybe about the strength conditioning world, and that interests me. But then I also have a lot of medical knowledge, and we write research on papers for surgeries or whatever. But then also just the tried and true, my happy place used to be the gym, grunt work, being a gymnast, being a coach. So yeah, usually when I go to these places, they'll kind of ask me to do a couple hours with each. So I'll do like the place that I just went, I don't want to name drop anywhere, but I went to a pretty high level school and I spent 2 hours with their strength conditioning staff first about program design, hybrid models. What can we do? What can change? What does our force plate data say that's helpful? All that kind of stuff. And then I spent 2 hours with their coaching staff, their strength coaches and their gymnastics coaches about more of like the actual nuts and bolts of program design and what the season looks like and injuries and that. And then I spent 2 hours with the girls, just like talking about sleep, recovery, stress management, culture, like how to outperform other teams maybe that are doing the same thing they're doing. What can they do as athletes? So it's weird. Like I kind of feel like a chameleon just morphing around, but for me, it's not like I'm a different person. I think this is all equally as important. Like nobody wins unless the entire team's on board. It's just a different flavor of message for the athletes versus the strength coaches versus the medical staff versus the gymnastics coaches. And maybe I think that's why they enjoy talking to me, because I feel like I can offer perspectives from a 30,000 foot bird's eye view of across the whole college spectrum, across the whole elite spectrum. And then also seeing, the different facets of the operational model.
Yeah. And then how do you break into with that messaging, especially at the club level? We touched on this before jumping on, is I think we both share the belief, the philosophy, whatever the right word is, in terms of how important like actual lifting weights is, and getting younger athletes, especially younger female athletes, to understand the importance of that, so that by the time that you are in college, as it was explained to me, you're essentially not duct taped together, because you've had so much ground and pound, so to speak, within the sport. And then I look at it from a standpoint too. It's like, if I'm at the club level and I look at the college world, and they're, well, not all, but the vast majority are lifting weights, it's like, don't reinvent the wheel, just do what they're doing. So if they're doing it, like, why the hell would I not be doing the same fucking thing? Right. So how do you get that messaging within them? Yeah.
So I'll start by saying what not to do, because I really screwed this up. Is when I was younger, I was all on the research, injury risk reduction, kind of like stay healthy point of view. And it went absolutely nowhere. Like people do care, but not totally, you know what I mean? It's important, but you're not going to sell anybody on that. So I had to kind of reverse engineer all the performance side. And so you have to kind of think about, like, on the performance side, what is their struggle point? And then on a personal side, which is more moving the needle, what are they struggling with as coaches and as people? So on the performance side, you ask people, like, what are the issues you're struggling with? Like, well, the girls or guys, they're not fast enough. They don't jump high enough. They don't have enough power, when they do bars or floor or whatever. And then you pretty much just like Trojan horse it, where the same exact argument that I would give somebody for why you should probably squat and land properly to not tear your ACL is the same exact thing that I talk about, which is you should probably squat and jump and land properly to jump higher, or run faster. And so we kind of talk about like, okay, well, you tell me what you need the most help with, and I'll reverse engineer an argument for why lifting is important. So it's usually one of three categories. It's either they have to perform better, jump higher, run faster, have bigger tumbling, whatever, or it's they're burning out and they're monotonous and it's boring and they don't want to do the grind, which I totally get, or injuries. It's those three things. So I layer those things. And the exact same argument is like, okay, well, if you want to run faster on vault, to have a bigger Yurchenko, to get a full, to be on the radar of a scholarship when you're 16, we need to increase speed forward, horizontal force displacement. So what we do with that is we get your legs stronger, and then we teach you how to run properly. And then we give you a lot of reps at high speed running to get that. What does that look like? Step ups, split squats, sled pushes as a base, and then med ball work, sprint work. Here's some vertical shin drills. And we just dose that over the course of an off-season program. And then you kind of talk about the same piece in the middle part, which is, okay, well, if you're monotonous with training and you're training so much and you're bored, what can we do to spice this up but still have fun? We could probably lift. We could do some split squats, some step ups. We could teach you how to run properly. We could get you some vertical shin angle, right? And then the next one is like, okay, well, if those two things are not the issue, what's the thing? Well, we're 12 years old, we're 14 years old, we're trying to learn these skills, but their knees are always hurting, their backs hurt, they have growth plate injuries. Okay, sounds great. Well, what could we do instead? Well, let's pull back a little bit on the hard surfaces and let's add some step ups. Let's add some split squats. Let's do some sleds. Let's teach you how to run properly. That will help you handle these forces better, right? So you have to be, as an educator and as someone who's trying to help the most people, you have to be thoughtful about reverse engineering what they care about. And I think that's where maybe I've moved the needle the most on the podcast and stuff and others, is asking people, what do you want help with? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, how can I get the same conversation to come out? And so that's what it is with college programs, the elite programs, the club level stuff, people who come to me with a surgery who like have a torn labrum and they're like frustrated that this happened at 15 years old or 16 years old. It's an opportunity to be like, all right, well, let's take a big step back and think about what your goals are and then reverse engineer that. And so that's a long-winded answer to the performance side. The personal side is you ask a coach, you're like, do you actually like your job? And they're like, kind of, not really. Yeah, I'm like, why? Like, well, it's frustrating because I'm putting in all this work and the girls feel as though they're not making progress and we're not seeing scores that we want. And it's kids are always hurt. So I'm having to make prehab programs or stuff with rehab. And it's like, okay, if you're not happy at work because the culture sucks or something else is going on with your own philosophy of training, let's think about what we can change here. What does the research say? lifting weights is probably important. Talking about communication and psychological safety is probably important. Paying people what they're worth and actually listening to their input is probably helpful. And that I'm having those culture conversations with gyms that are frustrated because their bottom line is falling apart because kids are leaving the gym or getting hurt and docking their pay. So it's a different conversation with a business owner versus a coach versus a medical provider. So yeah, I'm rambling, but yeah.
Yeah. Have you found, in my experience too, is once they, especially at the high school and college level, once they start lifting, like actually moving some weight, they get really addicted.
Oh yeah. They don't get addicted to the lifting. They get addicted to what the lifting creates.
Yeah. It's very fascinating in terms of like, as at least in my experience, as they've come in through the gym and it's moderate to light lifting. It's almost like, I think a lot of strength, especially in the college world, I think a lot of strength coaches are scared to push female athletes like that.
Yeah.
Versus
the glass cannon theory.
No.
That's what I tell people. It's like the strength coaches at colleges, when they get gymnasts or really high level athletes who are already pretty good, they don't want to load them too much because they're scared they'll break them, but they're so good at their sport. They're like cannons. So Lou Porchazio is the Michigan strength coach for gymnastics there. And we talk about like glass cannons. Like you can't treat gymnasts like glass cannons that are like all go and you can't actually build resilience. It's the opposite. They're anti-fragile. You have to add robustness to let them handle their season. So yeah, go on. But
no, it's been fascinating to see. It's like all of a sudden, and then like they crave to lift more. They're like, why are we going light today? I'm like, well, not every day is a heavy day.
Yeah. It's interesting because this is a blessing and a curse. And Duesh, Podell, and Jonah Monlock, who are the strength coaches that like head of sports science and the head strength conditioning coaches at Champion, have helped me make thousands of programs for gymnasts, elite, international, whatever, college. And we talk about this, which is really interesting, which is it's a blessing and a curse being kind of tip of the spear, which is you can't PubMed what's the best program for a gymnast to get a bigger vault, right? But you only have to put a small drop in their bucket of lifting to see a performance benefit because their training age for gymnastics is like 15, 16, 17, 18. These people have been working out since they're 3, right? But they've never externally loaded. So you can put a very small, basic 4x6, 4x8 trap bar deadlift and a bunch of other accessory work in. And, you can make the argument on the super dorky, like force velocity curve to muscle tie per fight to strenuous load. They've never gotten that exposure. So they do 3 sets of 8 weighted push-ups and they're super sore because they've only done 4 sets of 40 push-ups for their entire life. And the muscle fiber distribution is different. So we know on the back end from a technical point of view, like type 2 fibers, and we're maybe transitioning X and we're getting rate of force development stuff with power work. But in their mind, they're just doing something that's different and gives them a different stimulus. So for gymnasts, like who come to college, for example, you can literally give them the most vanilla basic starter program that a 12-year-old would get from a U team, right? For just look at any template from Boyle or Cressy or anybody who's a great strength coach and give them a basic functional movement pattern lift. And they see a massive benefit because they've never done it before. Yeah. And so you give them a little bit of that GPP work and they get addicted to, I don't feel like shit. My knees don't hurt as much. My back doesn't hurt as much. And I'm powerful. Like I'm getting some serious vault speed when I was almost giving up vault as a event because I didn't have the power, but now I have an extra gear that I can get it. Or at the end of the season, we're still standing with 18 girls who can compete versus the duct tape method that a lot of other places happen. So they start to get that little bit of a buy-in, and then it starts to become a snowball effect of I see the benefit of both.
Yeah, and then I would say kind of the not really unintended consequence, but like the other side of it is they start to feel better as a human being and just the way that they look at themselves in the mirror. I think that like as most athletes, especially most female athletes, and then you can almost argue nearly the majority of gymnasts come in and like, what's the one word that they want, right? Like, I need confidence, right? I want to believe in myself more. Yeah. And I think that like that, at least in my experience, like weightlifting on that side of it has like 10x just the way that they view themselves.
Totally.
Right. And like placebo 101, right? Like it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. Works, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, man. You can make the so the thing that's really hard and that we're still struggling with is the journey to get to college, which a lot of kids want. Some kids just want to be healthy in the sport and move on. But the journey to get to college, whether it's not a scholarship or a scholarship, is so brutal, man. Like the way the entire system is still set up between You can make all the arguments, the gymnastics culture, the recruiting stuff, the lack of technical knowledge and science-based, whatever. But I've worked with athletes where they work so goddamn hard from 12 to 18 to get on a team and get a scholarship that they just accumulate so much collateral whiplash from back injuries and knee stuff and frustration and burnout and mental health and body image issues and stuff. They get to college and they're so excited they finally got there. And then they're still dragging all these injuries with them or all this frustration with them. I've had some girls who missed 2.5 years of their 4-year eligibility because they're hurt all the time, or they're having issues with surgeries. And like, that's so frustrating. Is like, you work so hard to get to college, and then you get to college and you tear your Achilles and you lose a year, and you come back and then you get like a knee thing, and then you lose half a season to that. And then you finally get into your rhythm. What we're seeing now is the girls that we've worked with, and the one I always talk about, Kylie, she's been with us I've treated her for 9 years. From her first year is 13. She's a senior right now. She has lifted with us every season after, and that she's getting better every year. She feels better. She's doing bigger skills as a sophomore than a junior than a senior. And she might take a fifth year from COVID. And it's like, it's wild to see the inverse, which is the other way is people who start super hard, super early. It's like, who can barely make it to the finish line and they leave with a bad taste in their mouth. And so that's been the most exciting thing, is hearing people like Kylie and others who, looking back, are like, wow, my senior year of college when I was 18, 19, 20, 21 were my best years performance wise. And I loved the sport. I fell back in love. My mental health was great. I wasn't worried about what I was eating because I was feeling myself well. I didn't have body image issues. I was lifting that helped my body comp, and I felt powerful. I felt confident. I felt strong as shit. Like, that's what I love. That's what I really enjoy, is like when older female athletes, I mean, I work with so many females, but that's the exact same thing parallel for males, can talk to the 12-year-olds at Champion now who are working out and lifting and be like, listen, I know you don't think this is smart to leave practice early or talk to your coach and come lift with us for one time per week, but I'm telling you, this is great. And those 12-year-olds watch those girls on ESPN. They're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm working out next to this girl, and she's telling me this is good for me and to go slow and get through puberty and wait till I'm 15. Like, that's very rewarding for me. Mike and Lenny did that with the MLB guys who like help out and mentor some of the minor league guys or the high school guys. And so the fact that we have college girls that are like the famous college girls that we work with that are like giving advice to the 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Yeah. And then, like, what do you feel like, or actually, let me backtrack. Let me comment on that too, because I do think that that's really interesting and fascinating, because I feel like as especially college athletes move towards their junior and senior year, and the conversations, kind of like mentoring some of them, like not on the like strength and conditioning side, is like they all of a sudden shift from having these desired outcomes, tangible results that they want to accomplish, like as when they came in freshman, sophomore, is to, it's like, well, I just want to have fun this year. I'm like,
right.
Do you like,
yeah.
I don't like, I feel like that you're just frustrated at some point.
It's fun for them though? Winning.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I'm not in that boat. Like, I'm the least competitive person ever, but like, they have fun when they're healthy and they're crushing.
Yes. And it's definitely
we can pave a path for that.
Yeah. It's definitely, I'm like, that's the feel good, because it gives you a way out, that if you become injured, if you're not into it, if you don't crack lineup this year, it's like, well, I didn't really fucking care. I'm like, yeah, you did. Like, yeah, you did. Like, you've been a competitor all your life, and you're in a sport where like you have a burning desire to like be great.
Especially with the team aspect. The team aspect, man, when you put a letter on your Leo and it's a different world, like, you are bloodthirsty sometimes to want to hit and to want to do well, because obviously the team goals transcend often the individual ones. And so, like some of the teams we've been fortunate to work with and have girls that are on the team from Champion are, I don't want to say anything too much. They're doing very well against teams that they shouldn't be doing very well against. And so it's awesome to see a team like that, that's an underdog, that's like a 16, 17, 18 come out of the woodwork and just smash right against some of these big D1 schools. And when they get that little bit of frothiness, they're like, oh, this is amazing. You know what I mean? It's so fun for me to watch that happen. Like, I feel like I watch gymnastics now, college was more like an obligation to keep tabs on everybody. And like, as a fan too. But for me, like taking a huge step back, Ryan, it's like the reason I do it and work so much at it is because the ripple effect of what a young girl watching college gymnastics and a team of hardworking, amazing, talented female athletes and also guys as well, like the ripple effect on their psychology, their mental health, to have a model and somebody to look up to that is hardworking, courageous, works their face off, does the harder work. Like, it's so important in our society to have like really positive role models, male and female in sports, that 12-year-olds see in the era of endless Kardashians. Let's just be frank.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and for me, it's like, okay, if I can slightly move the needle to help that happen, like someday when I have a daughter, I hope she finds some random college gym that she's obsessed with and wants to be like, and follows in her footsteps. You know what I mean? Like that's the real potential of this.
Yeah. It's like I even tell a lot of, especially the girls, is I'm like, dude, you know more about the Kardashians or celebrities than you know about yourself. And that's not,
Right.
that's not healthy. Like,
Terrible.
like you can give me tabs on their life. And then I just ask you, like, who are you beyond like being an athlete in your name and you have siblings and things like that. And you're one generic hobby. It's like, you can't go like beyond surface level. It's like, dude, let's start there. Let's let's build out of there.
And that's a huge role of all sports, right? Is to be able to like provide the framework to learn important values when you're young about those things like hard work and discipline and whatever, but also like it gives you the vessel to look up to people who hopefully are behind the scenes virtuous and have good morals, but also are willing to put in the hard work and take the harder path instead of doing the easy way out.
Yeah. And I think that like the superpower to have those like role models, icons, people that you want to look up to, especially as, you know, using Tony Robbins' word, like proximity is power, right? Like to be that close to them, i.e. in a gym, or, you know, if even just knowing you that you know them feels like that they're close to them. And so I feel like sometimes they may feel like, well, you have to say you love me. You have to say you care about me. You have to say you want me to succeed. But this 18-year-old that's like, hey, like, trust me, like they don't feel like that. Like there's an ulterior motive coming from them.
And one of the most important things that has definitely happened for me, there's probably like, I could probably say 3 people who I like look up to on that level, like whether it's a business thing or whether it's like just a personal philosophy thing. There's probably like 3 people that I look up to and I'm like, yo, I really aspire to be as hardworking and as moral as you. And I would say it used to be 4, but like I met one of them in person who was like famous, quote unquote. And what I thought they were versus what they said they were was completely different. And it left the worst taste in my mouth, you know, but the other 3, and I'll shout out the one who is there, is Gary V. I have been fortunate to interact with Gary a little bit. And I looked up to him so much, man. I was like 2013, started my business. And I was like, he's a good dude. He works hard. He's moral. And then I met him and he really actually, I talked to him like on a Zoom. He's like generally that dude. And he really is. It's like, yeah, that's dope. You know what I mean? And I can say this for like Champion is like, Rich Hill, I think people know Rich Hill works out at Champion and he is like the dude, man. He's like a GOAT for some of these kids because he's like long ass year. He played for the Dodgers. He's pitched in the World Series, but he is the nicest dude. He's really who he is. You know what I mean? And so for me, when people who they look up to are actually those people, they're actually moral, they don't have skeletons in their closet. That's such a powerful effect because it makes it tangible that these people are real humans who struggle and go through things, but they're still doing the hard work. So the fact that we can provide the opportunity at Champion to have a 12-year-old connect to that ESPN superstar or a minor league guy to connect with Rich, or like a business thing of like somebody who, I have a lot of PT students that come through and they're like, I started following you when I was 2014 and I went to PT school because of you. And now I'm like shadowing you. I'm like, bro, that's wild to me. Like that I'm even in that, like, but I'm happy that I'm the person you actually think I am. I think that's what we're trying to set up here with college gymnastics, and why I'm still working so hard is because I want people who are younger, coaches and athletes and gymnasts and medical providers or whoever, to look up to people who are doing it in college or at the elite level for the right reasons. And they're getting like international Olympic level success. Like we just had someone on the podcast that's like a future speaker for an event we're putting on in June that will be announced soon. That's all I can say. But like it's like an Olympic level athlete who everyone looks up to, and she's like still willing to just talk about how she struggles and what she's going through, and they talk about what it takes to get there, that you don't have to be an absolute asshole to kids to get somebody to a high level. And it's like, dude, that's so cool that there's people showing that example, that the people you look up to are just as awesome as you thought, and it's wonderful. They're not, they're not different, and I love that. I really do.
Yeah, there's a extreme power. And at first I did it by accident. And then I have like my own mentor coach that like helped me really like double down on this concept of, I feel like a lot of people make the mistake, especially when they go into, like in your case, if I'm going into a club gym, or if I'm going to talk to, a college team, is they come in and just essentially start teaching. And the kids are like, I don't fucking care. Like,
Yeah.
there's like, so I think there's this superpower, like you said, if there's an Olympic level, or like for me, it's like the moment I go in there and they're like, okay, like, what are you going to do first? I'm like, I'm going to like spend an hour and tell my backstory. Like, I want them to know, like,
out.
like 100%, because now they have at least somewhat, for the majority, a reason to feel connected to me or like listen. It's amazing how people go in, they're like, I won X national titles and I did this and I did this and I did this.
Dude,
and they're like, I don't fucking care.
This is so important. This is so important. I hope this is value add for people listening, is that I can't tell you how fast my brain turns off when I talk to somebody and that's the first thing we go for, which is like, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I won this and we sold this many things and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yawn, you know what I mean? Like, dude, nobody cares. Like nobody gives a shit. Right. But alternatively, when someone comes to me at the clinic, and that's kind of like why I've tried a lot to be just authentically me, like whether I swear or I talk about whatever, I make mistakes, is like, because that's what people care about, dude. It's like, you're a normal human, and the people who can legitimately have an internal point of self-esteem that is not dependent on who they work with or what they do or how much money they make, right? Like the people who can legitimately be like, I have high self-esteem because I work hard and I'm nice and I try to make the world a better place. Like that's what fuels my self-esteem. I don't need any of the stuff that I've been noted to be like famous for. I don't need any of it to feel better about myself. I don't need shift to work. I don't need their money. I don't need to work with the highest level athlete. I just generally want to like learn things and help people and like enjoy my life. Like, of course I need money to pay for my rent, but like, I'm not out here trying to like, price gouge people so I could do it. If people truly want to make an impact with high level sports or whatever, find a way to detach yourself self-esteem wise from who you work with or who's on Instagram you're taking pictures with or how much money you make from these people, right? And legitimately just become like someone who cares about their career as a person. You know what I mean? I think this is what I learned from Mike and Lenny, is like Mike and Lenny treat Rich the same exact way they treat the 12-year-old superstar kid who's just coming in for like an elbow thing. It's no different. The clinic, you get the same treatment in the clinic, you get the same chat. It's whatever. It's the same intake paperwork. It's the same, you can't just swig away in. And I feel like I really enjoy that, because the way that I talk to Olympians or elite athletes or coaches or whatever is the exact same way that I treat everybody else. And I'm just a regular dude, man, who just wants to like try my best. I have things that I know that can help you. It feels like the right thing to do to share that information with you. And that's why Shift started. It was like, it feels like the right thing to do. It really does. Like I'm not a good businessman. I'm really not, but it feels like it's the right thing to do. And I would punch myself in the face if I didn't take the opportunity to do this when the world needed some help in gymnastics. So like, I have the information. Why not share it? And if you don't mind paying me $100 so I don't have to eat ramen noodles, that'd be great too as well.
What's the old Jim Rohn quote? It's like, I don't need your money, but I'll take your money.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it is, man. And honestly, like, I have a very big model of like, that's called like people over profits, which is like, treat people well and do the right thing and generally try to help people and don't be afraid of the work. And eventually the money will follow. Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And people's bullshit radar is pretty
oh
good.
My God.
Pretty
With
good
advertising
nowadays.
These days, bro.
Yeah.
I like instantly swipe away from an ad. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I get thousands of emails about like, how you tried to monetize your Instagram audience. I'm like, later, block these. Like I don't do any of those brand deals or stuff like that, because like even people in the industry that have tried to reach out to me and like, hey, like, can we do an affiliate thing for partnership? I want to help Shift and this. And I'm like, okay, if you have good intent and you generally just want to help people, sure, we'll do something else like that. But like, dude, my radar for that stuff is so high now. Like I can smell that shit a mile away. It's like, okay, AKA you want to use my email list to monetize your product. Got it.
Yep. Do you feel like a lot of the athletes, like I feel like one of the most difficult things for them, I always like challenge them initially, like 3 commitments: show up, do the work, ask questions. And I was like, all 3 are relevant, right? You have to show up, you have to do the work, but the hardest part is to ask questions, because if you're around a mentor or if you're around a higher level athlete, right? It's like, you can't really know if you're on the right path or not without asking questions, right? And so I feel like that is the biggest hurdle for a lot of these kids, is like really helping them learn how to not just ask questions, but ask good questions.
Yeah. And it's not only with the gymnast, that's universal, I think, in gymnastics, but also sports, which is whether it's like coaches who are trying to learn from other coaches, right? Or gymnasts who are looking up to their mentors or their role models, or medical providers who are trying to, find other people. That is something I think I think it actually comes from the top-down leadership of creating an environment culturally where it's you're making it safe and okay to ask questions and kind of screw things up and kind of fail uphill. And I think that like Mike always tells the students this, which is like, you can ask any question you want. No dumb questions. It's totally fine. You can't ask the same question twice. So like if I tell you the answer or I give you some resources, you should go home, you should look that up, and you should come back and make sure you kind of bank that in your memory. And I think the way you do that is you have to be, there's no ivory towers. There's no high horses, right? Like if you come to Champion and you hang out for a day, you'd be like, this is not at all what I thought it was. It's like people just hanging out and treating people and just kicking it and shooting the shit. It's not this like boxed kind of like, oh, I have to like make my way in regally to talk to Mike Reinold because he's whatever. Same thing with Rich. Like if Rich is in a bullpen and he's pitching, yeah, probably leave him alone, right? But like he's just like doing his side stuff. He always goes out of his way to talk to guys who ask questions. And like we do the same thing with students. Like I have 2 or 3 doctoral students who I'm like, you can literally ask me anything and I'm totally okay with it. And like, I'm not going to give you the answer, but I'll definitely help you find the way. And I think leadership or role modeling that does that, Mike and Lenny are just as humble and down to earth and want to learn as I am and as everybody else is, which means that the clients feel comfortable asking questions, which means the staff feels comfortable asking questions. And it creates an environment where like everyone's just trying to help each other and get ahead. And we're all better, for it. So like that's the environment you have to build as a strength coach or it's so important as like a coach or an athletic team in gymnastics. Like I've really, fortunately or unfortunately, I've seen the best of the best cultures in college or elite programs or gyms. And I've seen some horrific cultures where it's like eggshells and gossip and bickering and bitching and moaning and just like, I don't want to work and you know what I mean? But I've also seen ones that are just laser sharp. Like, this is crazy. You guys are year after year so successful and you always have uplifting positive messages and the girls love doing gymnastics and you are killing it competitively. And the way they do that is they're really okay creating that psychological safety that like, gymnastics is awesome. This is great. Our jobs depend on it, but I don't need you to hit your routine and for us to win, for me to feel better about myself. And like that really is a distinguishing factor of high performing cultures is they're extremely humble. They always learn. They're always open to get more perspective. They ask other people to come in and help them that are experts in strength conditioning, whatever, but they also are willing to really open the playing field up for like humility and everyone can say anything as long as it's respectful and honest. It's really important.
Have you found too is, especially I feel like in the gymnastics world, but it's probably a lot of athletes, or maybe it's more of a like male versus female thing, is a lot in the gymnastics world. Like they think very, very, very polar in terms of like, you can't be humble and confident at the same time, right? Like you have to be one or the other. Like everything's like black or white. Like there is no gray area for a lot of their thinking. I'm like, no, like it's actually okay to be arrogant. Now you don't have to like go shoot a video on Instagram talking about how you're the shit, right? Like, but like in your brain, you can be like, oh fuck yeah, I'm about to whoop some ass.
Well, I think there's a big, on one side, there's a big difference, but this is a good conversation. There's a big difference between arrogance and confidence, right? On the leaning that way. And there's also a very big difference between humility and insecurity, right? So on one side, you can be confident, right? And know that you put the work in, like any high level athlete that I've worked with who talks about it is like when they step up on game day or whatever, like it is zero doubt in their mind. They're like, I'm going to fucking destroy this routine. You know what I mean? Like I'm going in hard. I put in the work, I put in all the effort, and it's not that they're going to do it all the time, but they feel confident enough in their preparation that they did everything they possibly could in their control to influence a good outcome. Should something happen, you slip on the floor, some random error, there's so many things that can happen, right? Somebody like in a non-gymnastics way, like some guy just has a better day than you, like the light strikes in a bottle and this dude just outpitches you. Like it just is what it is. Right. But in their mind, it's a success because they put in all of the work to be confident in their performance. But that's a very big different thing than like arrogance of like, I don't need to learn from anybody. I know everything. Nobody can teach me anything. There's new science all the time. And there's always new things to learn. But on the other side, is a difference between humility and then insecurity, right? Humility is like, okay, I put in the work and I'm confident, but I'm always open to learn. I'm always open to hear new things. I'm always open to get somebody's perspective because maybe I don't know what my pitching looks like from outside the cage. I don't know what my gymnastic skills look like when I'm on X day and I'm tired. That's very different than insecurity, which is like, oh my God, I missed out on this. I'm never good enough. I can't believe I did this. Like listening to emotional stuff like that and letting the fear get the best of you is a gray line for both of those that the best athletes have. They're able to be confident in their work and their prep and themselves, but they also are constantly able to adapt and learn to new things. And as new research comes out or new ideas come out, try to change with the fly as their career changes over time as well.
Yeah. And I try to get them to understand as like I break it down from that confidence to arrogance, so to speak, is the difference between like believing and knowing. Cause I feel like a lot of athletes are like, I want to believe more. And the example I always give, I'm like, well, how old are you? And they're like 20. I'm like, do you know that you're 20? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, would you bet me $1 million you're 20? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, you don't ever, somebody doesn't ask you your age and you don't say, well, I believe I'm 20. It sounds like there's a smidgen of doubt underneath there. So I think that like when you know you're going to go in and hit things because you've done all the things, I've put in the work, I've prepared right, I know where my mental and emotional states are. It's like you have that knowingness. And when you create that, that's like, that's like wildfire.
and this is the difference between hope and belief, right? Hope can be given, but beliefs must be forged, right? You have to put in the work and you have to know, like, and this is really important for if you're owning a business or if you run a team or whatever you're doing, is like nobody at the end of the day, the majority of your time is by yourself when no one's looking, doing work, right? And you either know that in the dark corners of the other 8 hours of the day, when Instagram's not a thing and you're not on TikTok and, you know, no one's in the weight room around you loading the plates up, right? Like nobody knows but you. So like if you can confidently say that, like, I have a routine and a discipline that puts in that work and does what it needs to do, that's how you forge belief, right? Anybody can razz you up with a speech in a locker room and tell you you're gonna destroy everybody and it's gonna be awesome. That's giving you hope, but it's not really like authentic because like you don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
Versus if somebody, you know, if the perfect in gymnastics I always go back to is like if you have a really hard routine that you've hit under pressure multiple times when the lights were on, you have a lot more belief because you've forged that belief with work. There's tangible factual evidence that you have performed well, right? Versus if someone you've never done it before and someone's like, you're going to hit, it's going to be awesome. Don't worry. Like you're just believe in yourself. It's like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, of course you can have some of that rah, and that's important for some people, but also the better concrete evidence is that when you have factual data to go back on that this has worked. And sometimes there is like the psychology aspect of like not listening to the distorted beliefs in your head that everything's always bad all the time, but like crawling through the dirt and finding those factual pieces. That's important, right? But like, I believe in motivation. I believe in uplifting people, but I also believe a lot more that people have to earn the right to feel confident by putting in the goddamn work. You know, that's true.
Do you know who Alex Hormozi is?
I do. Yeah. Okay. I'm approximately, yes, because of like business marketing and following stuff like that for sure.
Okay. So he made a post, I think it was on Twitter or whatever. He was like tying into what exactly you're saying. He was like, stop looking for confidence and just look for evidence. He's like, because evidence is what you want. And it's essentially what you're saying. It's like, did I actually do these things? That actually builds the confidence, the evidence of knowing that you can't fucking lie to yourself.
Correct. And even on that layer deep, which is that you don't always have to have the evidence or the facts that I have done this thing. Because a lot of high level athletes are reaching for something that's never been done or they've never done before. It's not that like I have evidence that I've won a gold medal at the World Championships, right?
Right.
But it's evidence and proof that I have done everything I possibly can in my control to influence the best positive outcome. I went to sleep on time. I ate well. I did those extra workouts. I went to PT and did the rehab shit when nobody else was. Like they can say, like I confidently can say that at the door of this event, I have done everything in my control. But if you've cut corners and you've slid when nobody else was looking and you didn't really do that extra set and you kind of didn't do that extra prehab and you kind of didn't stay like late into those bike intervals, that's where doubt creeps into your head because you're like, did I really do everything? So like, I think that's what it's more about. And being able to hang out and talk with some people who have won, world or Olympic or, international competitions, that's what they say. They don't tell me that I don't feel that it can't go wrong. I feel as though I'm genuinely over prepared and I've done everything I possibly can in my control so that if it doesn't go the way that I want, I can still walk away and be like, you know what? I literally did have the best possible influence on what I could on the other side.
Yeah. I got a buddy that's a Army Ranger that I talked to on the podcast, I guess a couple weeks ago, and he calls it BYOB, buy your own bullshit.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I was like, dude, I'm totally stealing that.
Yeah, that'll definitely do it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, only you know at the end of the day whether you're actually putting in the work or not. You know what I mean? Which is why like I'm really big on not letting other people's cheering be the biggest motivator for you because it's cool. You know what I mean? Like it's great to hear, compliments and people are like, oh, thanks so much for this. And that's awesome. I appreciate that. And I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me, but at the same time, like I promise you, nobody else's opinion of me matters more than my opinion of myself of like knowing what I'm doing and the work that's going in and behind the scenes stuff. Because at the end of the day, that's really when you lay down and you're like, am I doing a good job? That's what it comes down to. It's not like, yes, everyone claps for me. It's like, no, I fucking ran at 5 a.m. when nobody else wanted to. And then I did the stupid tax meeting, and then I did all this other shit that I didn't want to do. And like, that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. But it's secure in like, it's a knowing your identity, right? Like, it's like, you can clearly like define like who you are. That's become such a big concept for me. Especially the last like 6 months. And like, I call it 1.0 versus like 2.0, and I give them a name. And so like, entering into this year, and this is what I try to get a lot of the athletes to understand is like, so my last old Ryan, I called it soft Ryan. And like, right now I'm into like conqueror Ryan. So like ingesting a lot of like,
David
literally that was the first one this year. Yeah, I read his new one. But then even like actual conquerors, like I picked up like Alexander the Great. I'm like, here are people that like literally conquered the world, but like just understanding the way that they thought.
Yeah.
Not like doing what they do. But then it's like asking myself, it's like, am I living as soft Ryan or conquer Ryan? If it's 5 a.m. and I want to hit the snooze button, does soft Ryan do this? Is that the old me? Or like, what does conquer Ryan do? Oh, he gets his ass out of bed. Okay. Well, like that's who I want to be. So that's who I'm going to do it. But it's having that actually outlined. And so helping these athletes, kids, people, anybody really across the board of like, what does that actually look like for you?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. This concludes part 1 of my conversation with Dave Tilley. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive really deep into identity and some of the biggest culture hurdles and struggles.